would like to start out by thanking those who are responsible for our being here for the invitation to speak here on the campus at Michigan State University and to express our views on what we feel is America's most serious problem, the race problem. And it should be pointed out at the outset that I represent the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, whose followers are known as the Muslims here in America, and actually are the fastest growing religious group among black people anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. And it is our intention to try and spell out what the philosophy and aims and motivations of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad happen to be, and his solution to this very serious problem that America finds herself confronted with.
Malcolm X stood before a mostly white campus and told the truth. Integration was a lie. Civil rights leaders were being used, and black people needed more than equality. They needed power. This speech was a direct hit at the system and at the mindset that kept black people begging for a seat instead of building their own. In this video, we will break down this historic speech. Please take the time to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to us. Let's hear more from Malcolm X about that.
And I might point out too that if you don't think that the problem is serious, then you need only to listen to the Attorney General, Robert F. Kennedy, and almost every speech he's been involved in, especially during the past few months, and even today, he has pointed out that the race problem is America's most serious domestic problem. And since the problem is so serious, it's time to take some serious steps to get to the factors that create this problem. And again, I want to thank the African Students Association and the Campus NAACP for displaying the unity necessary to bring a very controversial issue before the students here on campus. The unity of Africans abroad and the unity of Africans here in this country can bring about practically any kind of achievement or accomplishment that black people want today. And when I say the Africans abroad and the Africans here in this country, the man that you call a Negro is nothing but an African himself. But some of them have been brainwashed into thinking that Africa is a place with no culture, no history, no contribution to civilization or science. So many of these Negroes, they take offense when they're identified with their homeland. But today we want to point out the different types of Negroes that you have to deal with. And once you know there's more than one type, then you won't come up with just one type solution. And to point out how timely the invitation is or was, I don't want to read newspapers to you, but in the Detroit News, dated Thursday, January the 17th, it told about the Interfaith Council of Religion that was held in Chicago last week. And the topic of their conversation was the race problem here in America. And it pointed out that all of the time that they spent and money that they spent, actually they didn't get to the meat of the issue. And in this particular copy of the paper, on page 3, the chaplain at Wayne State University actually criticized the efforts of these Protestant, Catholics, and Jews in Chicago last week for failing to bring spokesmen to that conference who really would speak for black people and spell out issues that were not being spelled out by the others. And I just want to read a recommendation that he made. Mr. Boyd believes that the conference might have accomplished much good if the speakers had included a white supremacist and a Negro race leader, preferably a top man in the American black Muslim movement. He said that a debate between them would undoubtedly be bitter, but it would accomplish one thing. It would get some of the real issues out into the open. And I think that the man is right. Most of the so-called Negroes that you listen to on the race problem usually don't represent any following of black people. Usually they are Negroes who have been put in that position by the white man himself, And when they speak, they're not speaking for black people. They're saying exactly what they know the white man who put them in that position wants to hear them say. So again, I think that it was very progressive and objective on the part of these two sponsoring groups to give us an opportunity to tell you how black people really think and how black people really feel and how dissatisfied black people have become, increasingly so, with the conditions that our people find ourselves in here in this country. Now, in speaking in professing to speak for black people, by representing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you want to know, who does he represent? Who does he speak for? There are two types of Negroes in this country. There's the bourgeois type, who blinds himself to the conditions of his people and who is satisfied with token solutions. He's in the minority. He's a handful. He's usually the hand-picked Negro who benefits from token integration. But the masses of black people who really suffer the brunt of brutality and the conditions that exist in this country are represented by the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So when I come in here to speak to you, I'm not coming in here speaking as a Baptist or a Methodist or a Democrat or a Republican or a Christian or a Jew or not even as an American. Because if I could stand up here and speak to you as an American, we wouldn't have anything to talk about. The problem would be solved. So we don't even profess to speak as an American. We are speaking I'm speaking as a black man. And I'm letting you know how a black man thinks, how a black man feels, and how dissatisfied black man should have been 400 years ago. So, and if I raise my voice, you forgive me or excuse me. I'm not doing it out of disrespect. I'm speaking from my heart, and you get it exactly as the feeling brings it out. When I pointed out that there are two kinds of Negroes, some Negroes don't want a black man to speak for them. That type of Negro doesn't even want to be black. He's ashamed of being black. And you'll never hear him refer to himself as black. Now that type we don't pretend to speak for. You can speak for him. In fact, you can have him.
Malcolm begins by pointing to something the country had already been avoiding. The race issue wasn't a side problem, it was the issue. Even the government's top law enforcement official had said as much. But instead of facing it directly, institutions kept circling it. Religious groups held conferences, issued statements, and brought in speakers, but they avoided the core issue. They didn't invite the people who spoke for the black community. Malcolm calls this out. These national conversations were full of effort, but lacked honesty. The speakers weren't chosen because they had real credibility. They were chosen because they were safe. They could talk about racism in a way that didn't threaten anyone. They kept the anger manageable and the blame vague. That was the real goal. He wasn't interested in that kind of performance. He came to speak as someone who had lived the problem, not studied it. He didn't claim a political party. He didn't claim a national identity. He wasn't trying to fit into anyone's system. He spoke as a black man. That's it. And that was enough. He also made it clear that not every black voice is the same. Some people have learned how to benefit from the system by keeping quiet. They appear in positions of influence, but don't speak for the masses. They speak for the people who gave them that position. Malcolm doesn't waste time pretending they're allies. He says outright that these figures have been selected for their silence. They say what white institutions want to hear. The deeper point is this: there isn't one kind of black experience, so there can't be one solution. If the only people being heard are the ones who are already comfortable, then nothing will change for those who aren't. Most black Americans weren't asking for token inclusion or symbolic progress. They were angry, tired, and done being polite.
And the only thing that makes white people completely satisfied and black people completely satisfied when they're in their right mind is when the black man has his own and the white man has his own. You have what you need, we have what we need. And then both of us have something, and even the Bible says, God bless the child that has his own. And the poor so-called Negro doesn't have his own name, doesn't have his own language, doesn't have his own culture, doesn't have his own history, he doesn't have his own country, he doesn't even have his own mind. And he thinks that he's black because God cursed him. He's not black because God cursed him. He's black because, rather he's cursed because he's out of his mind. He has lost his mind. He has a white mind instead of the type of mind that he should have. So, When these so-called Negroes who want integration try and force themselves into the white society, which doesn't solve the problem, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that that type of Negro is the one that creates the problem. And the type of white person who perpetuates the problem is the one who poses as a liberal and pretends that the Negro should be integrated, and as long as he integrates someone else's neighborhood. But all these whites that you see running around here talking about how liberal they are and we believe everybody should have what they want and go where they want and do what they want, as soon as a Negro moves into that white liberal's neighborhood, that white liberal he moves out faster than the white bigot from Mississippi, Alabama, and from someplace else. So we won't solve the problem listening to that Uncle Tom Negro, and the problem won't be solved listening to this so-called white liberal. The only time the problem is going to be solved is when a black man can sit down like a black man and a white man can sit down like a white man and make no excuses whatsoever with each other in discussing the problem. No offense will stem from factors that are brought up, but both of them have to sit down like men, on one side and on the other side, and look at it in terms of black and white, and then take some kind of solution based upon the factors that we see rather than upon that which we would like to believe. And when I say that this Negro wants to force his way into the white man's family, this integrationist-minded Negro wants to force his way into the white man's family, some don't believe that. Some take issue with that. But you take all of the integrationists, all of the those who are used to finance the program of the integrationists, the average so-called Negro celebrity, put all of them in one pot. And as fast as you name them off, you'll find that every one of them is married either to a white woman or a white man. From Lena Horne, Eartha Kitt, Sammy Davis, and you could name them all night long. Although they say that this is not what we want, that's what they've done. That's what they have. And we don't, the black masses don't want what Lena Horne wants, or what Sammy Davis wants, or what, who's his name, the rest of them want. Usually you'll find that before Sammy Davis and Lena Horne and Eartha Kitt and Harold Belafonte become involved in a mixed marriage, you could go into the Negro community, anyone across the country, and find those stars with records on the jukeboxes in the Negro community. You can't walk into a Negro community today and find anybody that the Negro community knows is involved in a mixed marriage with their records being popular in the Negro community. Subconsciously, a Negro doesn't have any respect or regard or confidence, or nor can he be moved by a black man who marries a white woman, or a black woman who marries a white man. And when they put out that picture to you that all of us want your woman, no, just that 20th century Uncle Tom. He wants her. And then when you think you're going to solve your problem by pleasing him, you're only making the problem worse. You have to go back and listen to the problem as it is for the black people, not by these hand-picked handful of Uncle Toms who benefit from token integration. Also, this type of so-called Negro, by being intoxicated over the white man, he never sees beyond the white man. He never sees beyond America. He never looks at himself or where he fits into things on the world stage. He only can see himself here in America, on the American stage or the white stage, where the white man is in the majority, where the white man is the boss. So this type of Negro always feels like he's outnumbered, or he's the underdog, or he's the minority. And it puts him in the role of a beggar, cowardly, humble, Uncle Tom and beggar on anything that he says is that should be his by right. Whereas there is, when it comes, he wants to be an American rather than to be black. He wants to be something other than what he is. And knowing that America is a white country, he knows he can't be black and be an American too. So he never calls himself black. He calls himself an American Negro, a Negro in America. And usually he'll deny his own race, his own color, just to be a second-class American. He'll deny his own history, his own culture. He'll deny all of his brothers and sisters in Africa, in Asia, in the East, just to be a second-class American. He denies everything that he represents, or that everything that was in his past, just to be accepted into a country and into a government that has rejected him ever since he was brought here. So if this Negro is sick, he has to be sick to try and force himself among some people who don't want him, or to be accepted into a government that has used this entire political system and educational system to keep him relegated to the role of a second-class citizen. And therefore, he spends a lifetime begging for acceptance into the same government that made slaves of his people. He gives his life for a country that made his people slaves and still confines them to the role of second-class citizens. And we feel that he wastes his time begging white politicians, political hypocrites, for civil rights or for some kind of first-class citizenship. He's like a watchdog or a hound dog. You may run into a dog. No matter how vicious a dog is, you find him out in the street, he won't bite you. But when you get him up on the porch, he will growl. He'll take your leg. Now that dog, when he's out in the street, only his own life is threatened. And he's never been trained to protect himself. He's only been trained by his master to think in terms of what's good for his master. So when you catch him in the street and you threaten him, he'll go around you. But when you come up through the gate when he's sitting on the master's porch, then he'll bare his fangs and get ready to bite you. Not because you're threatening him, but because you're threatening his master, who has trained him not to protect himself, but to protect the property of the master.
Malcolm challenges the idea that progress comes from getting closer to the system that excludes you. For him, the problem wasn't just inequality, it was dependency. When people cannot control their language, history, culture, land, or identity, they're not living freely. They're surviving inside someone else's world. This is why he keeps returning to the concept of ownership. A person can't be whole if everything they touch belongs to someone else. The way out of that condition isn't more access to the system. It's breaking away from the need to rely on it at all. Ownership isn't just about land or money. It's about having something that isn't borrowed, permitted, or conditional. Malcolm isn't interested in symbols. He cares about the foundation. That means land, economics, education, and mental freedom. And none of that can come from a seat at someone else's table. It has to come from building your own. His view of the integrationist is not soft. He sees that mindset as one of defeat, not just politically, but spiritually. It reflects a person who has given up on self-worth without white approval. That kind of person becomes easy to control. They speak only when allowed. They think only within limits. They become loyal to a system that doesn't see them as equal. Malcolm is not asking for justice inside that framework. He's refusing it entirely. In doing so, he forces the audience to confront a hard question. If someone has to ask another group for every basic right, is that person free? Do they believe in their value if they are willing to beg for inclusion?
Because if white people get the impression that Negroes all endorse this old turn the other cheek cowardly philosophy of Dr. Martin Luther King, then whites are going to make the mistake of putting their hands on some black man thinking that he's going to turn the other cheek, and he'll end up losing his hand and losing his life in the trial. So it is always better to let someone know where you stand. And there are a large number of black people in this country who don't endorse anything of what Dr. Martin Luther King and these other 20th century religious Uncle Toms are putting in front of the public eye to make it look like this is the way, this is the behavior, or this is the thought pattern of most of our people. Also, this new type, you'll find, he doesn't look upon it as being any honor to be in America. He knows he didn't come here on the Mayflower. He knows he was brought here in a slave ship. But this 20th century Uncle Tom, he'll stand up in your face and tell you about when his fathers landed on Plymouth Rock. His father never landed on Plymouth Rock. The rock was dropped on him, but it wasn't dropped on him. So this type doesn't make any apology for being in America, nor does he make any apology for the problem his presence in America presents for Uncle Sam. He knows he was brought here in chains, and he knows he was brought here against his will. He knows that the problem itself was created by the white man, and that it was created because the white man brought us here in chains against our will. It was a crime. And the one who committed that crime is the criminal today who should pay for the crime that was committed. You don't put the crime in jail. You put the criminal in jail. And kidnapping is a crime. Slavery is a crime. Lynching is a crime. And the presence of 20 million black people in America against their will is a living witness or living testimony of the crime that Uncle Sam committed, your forefathers committed, when our people were brought here in chains. And the reason the problem can't be solved today is you try and dress it up and doctor it up and make it look like a favor was done to the black man by having brought the black man here. But when you realize that it was a crime that was committed, then you approach the solution to that problem in a different light, and then you can probably solve it. And as long as you think Negroes are running around here of the opinion that you're doing them a favor by letting them have some of this and letting them have some of that, well, naturally, every time you give a little bit more justice or freedom to the black man, you stick out your chest and say, see, we're solving the problem. You're not doing the black man any favor. If you stick a knife in my back, if you pull it in 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, you haven't done me any favor. If you pull it all the way out, you haven't done me any favor. And this is what you have to realize. If you put a man in jail against his will, illegally, he's not guilty, you frame him up. And then because he resents what you've done to him, you put him in solitary confinement to break his spirit. After his spirit is broken, you let him out a little bit and give him the general run of the prison, you haven't done him any favor. If you let him out of prison completely, you haven't done him any favor because you put him in there unjustly and illegally in the first place. Now you have 20 million black people in this country who were brought here and put in a political, economic, and mental prison. This was done by Uncle Sam. And today you don't realize what a crime your forefathers have committed. And you think that when you open the door a few cracks and give this little integration, an intoxicated Negro, a chance to run around in the prison yard, that's all he's doing, that you're doing him a favor. But as long as he has to look up to someone who doesn't represent him and who doesn't speak for him, that person only represents the warden. It doesn't represent some kind of president or mayor or governor or senator or congressman or anything else. So this new type, the fact has to be faced that he exists, especially since he's in the house. And he didn't come here against his will, so you have to take the blame for his being here. And once you take the blame, then it's easier for you to approach the problem more sensibly and try and get a solution. And the solution can never be based upon hypocrisy. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that this solution has to be based upon reality. Tokenism is hypocrisy. One little student in the University of Mississippi, that's hypocrisy. A handful of students in Little Rock, Arkansas, is hypocrisy. A couple students going to school in Georgia is hypocrisy. Integration in America is hypocrisy in the rawest form, and the whole world can see it. All this little tokenism that is dangled in front of the Negro, and then he's told, see what we're doing for you, Tom. Why, the whole world can see that this is nothing but hypocrisy, and all you do is make your image worse. You don't make it better.
Malcolm closes by tearing down one of the most persistent lies in American political life, that black people should be grateful to be here. That lie has been repeated through laws, media, and education. It tells the black population that citizenship is a gift, that integration is progress, and that the system is doing them a favor. Malcolm rejects all of it. He frames the presence of black people in America not as a result of migration, but as evidence of a crime. This wasn't a journey, it was an abduction. That matters because it changes the way responsibility is assigned. A crime has a criminal. A system built on that crime can't fix itself by offering symbols and surface-level reform. A wound inflicted by force can't be healed through politeness or slow policy shifts. It has to be addressed by calling the harm what it is. Malcolm offers no apology for his presence, tone, or message. He wasn't seeking common ground. He was speaking from the ground that had already been stolen, occupied, and built on a lie. And he wanted that lie named. The problem was created by power, not misunderstanding. And it won't be solved until power stops hiding behind symbols and starts owning up to the crime it still benefits from. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more content that cuts through the noise. Stay sharp, stay informed, and keep watching for more videos coming your way. Thank you for watching.